uh, Refreshing Judaism sessions here at Congregation Beth-El. I am Rabbi Dennis Sasso, and I am delighted to see many familiar faces all the way to Seattle, Washington, and here in Indianapolis and in Florida. And thank you for joining us. I know that some of you are taking this intro for the first time, and some of you are hanging on from last year or previous years. And what we're going to try to do is two things: to refresh our knowledge of Judaism for those who have previous exposure or experience, and on the other hand, hopefully learn something that we will find refreshing about Judaism. And that is the goal of this class. I know that some of you are taking it with interest in conversion to Judaism, and others are taking it just for personal enrichment purposes. Those of you who are interested in the conversion process as we go along, I will gather you in a separate conversation so that we can discuss some of the issues that are more relevant and immediate to that process. But for now, just welcome everybody. I am not as savvy at virtual technology as Dina, the Hebrew teacher, was, the Hebrew Morah. But thank God I have Jackie Goldstein online as well, and she can help us along the way. What I'm supposed to do to begin the class is to tell you that for resources for this series, you can always go to www.bez613.org, and there you choose Learn, and there you choose Adult Education, and there you go to Adult Education Materials. And that's where you will find what otherwise would have been printed handouts that I would have given you in class for us to look at during the flow of the conversation. There is also there an outline of the course and a suggested bibliography. Jackie, you can direct people to that. Or if you have a moment, Jackie, to just publish or print the outline of the course, the 8 sessions of the course. Can you put that on screen for us?
Yes, it will be just a second.
Okay. Jackie came on board exactly 1 year ago yesterday. Right, Jackie?
Yay!
And we have been the beneficiaries of her talents and of her dynamism, and we're very, very grateful.
Thank you.
I told her that the year has just virtually zoomed by.
Yes, very punny. And I've been a congregant forever. I mean,
oh yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like I've worked here for 20 years.
You went from being a volunteer to being a valued staff member.
So Rabbi, you can go ahead and continue. And as soon as I pull it up, I'll share my screen, but I don't want you to have to wait on me.
So what page is Refreshing Judaism, just for kind of an overview of what we're going to be doing. I've divided the course into 8 sessions, and to each one there is a title and an indicated speaker. In addition to myself, I've invited Cantor Melissa Cohen and Rabbi Jenny Greenspan to participate in a few of the sessions. And then for the last session, where we're going to be discussing issues in contemporary Jewish life, here we want the course overview, top one. There you go. So there are the 8 sessions. Can we move that up a little bit on the screen? Perfect. There you are. You can see that Cantor Melissa will join us for the session on the way we pray, and Rabbi Jenny Greenspan will talk about the life cycles and the Jewish calendar. And I hope to have a professional from the JCRC, the Jewish Community Relations Council, David Sklar, join us for a conversation on contemporary issues in Jewish life. That is the scope of the conversation. To accomplish this, we will need, of course, some supplementary insights from what we discuss in class. And Jackie, could we have the bibliography on screen for a minute? There you are. These are all helpful resources, and you can read them at your discretion by looking at the topic that we are discussing and finding in the books the appropriate chapter that will inform the conversation. To Life by Harold Kushner is a very popular, easy to read introduction to the Jewish experience, especially in America. It gives us history, it gives us issues of identity, community, observance, and you'll find it particularly easy to access. Embracing Judaism by Simcha Kling kind of would deepen the conversation from Harold Kushner's To Life. Is a little bit more textbooky, but again, very easy to read, and it's divided into very discernible chapters on a variety of topics that we will be talking about. Living a Jewish Life by Anita Diamond with Howard Cooper is more of a guidebook, day to day, week to week, year to year. It takes you through the important moments and significant issues in Jewish life and observance. And for those of you who are particularly interested in conversion to Judaism, Anita Diamond has a wonderful resource called Choosing a Jewish Life. Even those of you who are not taking this with interest in conversion will find her book to be very, very rewarding. Anita Diamond may be known to some of you as a well-known American Jewish novelist and beyond Jewish circles as well. Her most famous book is The Red Tent, which is a novel based on the story of Dinah in the Bible, the one daughter of Jacob. Finding God is a very helpful survey of issues in Jewish theological thinking, beginning with the biblical period up to contemporary times. So it introduces us to how God was understood in each of the major periods of Judaism, the biblical period, the rabbinic period. We'll talk about those periods in a few moments. And then up to contemporary times, contemporary Jewish theologians, Abraham Joshua Heschel, Mordecai Kaplan, Milton Steinberg is included. Milton Steinberg was the first rabbi of Congregation Beth-El and a leading disciple of Rabbi Mordecai Kaplan, my mentor. For purposes of history, there is no dearth of resources, but this book, Judaism, A Short History by Lavinia and Dan Cohn-Sherbach, is a very handy tool. I encourage you to expand your reading of Jewish history. There are excellent, even more literary books. There's a wonderful book called Wanderings by the late Chaim Potok, renowned American literary personality, novelist. And his book Wanderings is a exquisite survey of the Jewish historical experience and its major periods. And then for a sweet introduction into main Jewish values and ideas, I call to your attention this little book by Rabbi Arthur Green, renowned American Jewish scholar, primarily of mysticism, a former president of the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College, and well-known spiritual leader in American Jewish circles. So if you read all of those books, you will have a lovely grounding in the Jewish experience. And of course, books have bibliographies in them. And if you are an avid reader, you can always continue to build on those additional resources. So your interest will take you where you want to go. And hopefully during these conversations, we will spark additional interest. So welcome to our conversation on Refreshing Judaism. Jackie, we can take that off and come back to a full screen. And I don't know how best to effectuate this, but I think it's important that we at least hear each other's voices for a few moments and introduce ourselves. And I would simply like to ask you to name yourself. Tell us something about yourself that you would like us to know. And what brings you to this course, to this conversation? And all of that in half a minute per person. Otherwise, we'll spend the rest of the session here. So give us your name. Tell us something brief, identifying about yourself that you would like us to know. And why are you here? How do we begin, Jackie?
Well, let's start with
I can call names, but then
how about Alan?
Okay, you do it. You call.
I'm Alan Hamburger. My late wife and I moved here after we both were retired by our businesses going out of business, or our employers going out of business, to be with our grandchildren. And I'm here in this course just to learn more about Judaism.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks, Alan. Betsy, welcome from afar.
Hi, my name is Betsy Maurer. I was born and raised in Indianapolis, now living in Seattle, and I will take any opportunity to learn with Rabbi Dennis.
How about Kaylee?
Hi, I'm Callie. I'm a college student, and I was really just interested in reconnecting with Judaism.
Welcome. Peter?
Hi, I'm Peter. This is my wife, Marluz. I'm from Indianapolis. She's from Mexico originally. And we're just here to explore Judaism.
Yeah.
Marluz,
Yes.
si quieres podemos conducir la clase en español.
Perfecto, por mí mejor. Gracias.
Welcome, Eric.
Hi everyone, my name is Eric Hogan. I'm a student at IU and just here to learn as much as I can.
Awesome. How about Heather? Heather Camp. Some of you can't unmute yourselves. That's the
Sorry, can
mystery.
you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Heather Camp. I am calling in from Seattle. I'm a friend of Betsy's, and I myself am a convert to Judaism, and I have taken classes like this, but I'm so excited to take this one. So thank you for having me.
Welcome. And let's hear from James Roth.
Hi, my name is James Roth. I converted about 2 years ago with a group of nice people and became a member of Beth-El that year. And it's a great community. Rabbi Dennis is very interesting to listen to and learn from. And that's exactly why I'm here. I think every day goes by that you don't learn the day you should die. So it ain't gonna happen to me.
Thank you, Jim.
Welcome. And Kate Rothenberg.
Hi. Yes, my name is Newly Rothenberg. I got married 2 weeks ago. Thank you. I have wanted to convert for about 20 years now, but being with a Jewish family now, it just sealed the deal for me. So here I am.
Welcome, Kate. Nice to meet you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
And Dad.
Thank you.
And
Are you Danny's wife?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Pam and Lev Rothenberg.
We love your
Yes,
family.
they are excellent people.
That's awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Lori and Buddy. Oh, you're muted. There you go.
Okay. I think that I am interested in this course for a number of reasons. First, because we just love, like many others have said, learning and visiting with Rabbi Dennis. But secondly, I think my Jewish learning was as a child when it didn't have much significance to me. And then there was that period of time when you're working, you're raising kids, you're running a household, and you don't have time. And now in retirement, I think I have the time to reflect back on the things that I learned as a child that I'm not sure that really were of importance then and are much more important now.
Thanks.
Manuel?
Wait, we skipped
Buddy.
Oh, Buddy. Sorry, Buddy.
Oh,
That was so good. I was mesmerized by Lori.
Well, as usual, I defer to everything my wife says because she's taught me well. And we love the Sassos, and they've been a big part of our lives forever and ever and ever. And we're always looking to learn more. So I agree with Lori. Thank you.
Welcome, Buddy. All
We
right.
often walk together in the neighborhood. We're neighbors.
Aw. Manuel?
Unmute us.
Hello, my name is Manuel. I'm a registered nurse. My family, we live in West Lafayette. My wife's a doctoral candidate at Purdue, and I work locally here. I've been interested in Judaism since I was a kid, so I appreciate this time to learn. And Rabbi, since you speak Spanish, we should call you Rabino Sazon, Rabbi Seasoning.
Yeah, except it's not Sasson, it's Sasso. And
Right.
yeah, in Hebrew, many people render it Sasson, but it's probably originally Sasso. It's an Italian name, and it means stone or rock. So, mucho gusto, Manuel.
Our rock rabbi. All right, let's go to Martine. And here, if you can't unmute, I'll try to help. There we go.
My name is Martine, born Jewish, raised in France. I came to the States about 20 years ago to Indy. As I grew up in France, I did not really have a lot of education, never had a chance to do a bat mitzvah. My generation, we had no bat mitzvah really very going. My husband converted, and so I've learned some more when he converted. But now I'm retiring as well, and I really want to learn more about my own. And I'm looking for reconnecting with my faith.
Merci, Martine.
Welcome. All right, let's see, Michael. And some people are having trouble unmuting. Let me see if I can help.
There we go. Hi, my name is Mike. I live up in Marion, Indiana. My Jewish education came to a halt when my parents separated. I was in about the 3rd grade. And what I knew about Judaism, I carried around with me as kind of a precious little kernel. And it always sort of called to me. And now that I've reached my 50s, it's become really important to me that I build on that and mature that, since there's only so much time left. I'm really appreciative of the technology that allows me to build on that from afar. There's no Jewish community here in Marion, Indiana, and I'm just thankful that we have the technology now that allows me to reach out and to meet in a forum like this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. I'm a high school history teacher, and I am currently in Alabama because my mother passed away 3 weeks ago. So I'm down in Alabama helping my dad go through things and just not be alone right now. So this was a good time to do this. I've wanted to do this for over 20 years. So, you know, and Zoom made it possible. So
Our condolences to you and the family, Michelle. Sorry for your loss.
thank you.
Yeah, sorry, so sorry. Let's see here. Monique.
Hi, I'm Monique. I've kind of been learning my entire life, and I'm finally ready to make a commitment. I currently serve in the Air Force, and I'm just excited to learn and meet new people and have a group of people that have similar beliefs like me. It's kind of difficult to find people, so I'm pretty excited.
Welcome.
Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy Cuppy, originally from Buffalo, New York, and Purdue brought me to Indiana and Indianapolis a number of years ago. I'm currently engaged to a wonderful Jewish man and interested in learning more about his religion so we can blend our families together.
Welcome. You
Thank
teach
you.
at Butler?
Is he from Butler?
No, I'm sorry. Do you teach at Butler? Is that what you said?
No, I do not teach at Butler. I went to Purdue, and Purdue
Purdue.
brought
I'm
me
sorry.
to Indianapolis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. How about Russell and Kelly?
Hello, I'm Russell Crockett. I'm originally from Stockton, California, but I moved here back in the late 90s and just fell in love with Judaism a whole bunch of years ago. And I actually started the classes with Rabbi a long time ago, but life got in the way, and I feel like it was meant to be because now I have my wife with me who also wants to share this journey.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kelly Crockett. I don't know, but I am a small business owner here in the Indianapolis area, and I'm excited to learn and build some community and just get to know more.
Thank you.
Welcome. How about Scott and Lion?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lion. I live here with my husband, Scott, in Indianapolis. I'm a therapist and a clinical trainer for the Indiana Department of Child Services. We started classes with Beth-El this time last year and are still here, are interested in conversion. And like I said, in Hebrew class, we just miss everybody so much. Like it's been such a long year. And so like anytime that we can join in something that's going on, we want to be here. It's good to see everyone.
Welcome back.
All right. How about Steph and Cameron?
Cam and I are engaged to be married, and both of our families historically were Jewish, but then somehow or other fell away from the faith. And so we decided when we got engaged that we would both convert together to Judaism before we got married. So we started the conversion process. Well, I started like about 5 or 10 years ago, unofficially, but we started the official process with Beth-El last year, this same time with Lion. And we miss everybody too. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, you said it perfectly.
Welcome. And Phyllis, why don't you go next?
Hi, I'm Phyllis Luger. I'm on the faculty in the astronomy department at IU Bloomington. And Betsy said it perfectly. I take any opportunity to learn with Rabbi Dennis.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And let's see, Stephen?
Hello. Yeah, I'm from Indianapolis. I'm kind of grew up being Jewish. Went to B'nai Torah and the Hebrew Academy growing up, and then my fiance Wendy, who just had to leave to go to work, she's going through the conversion process. So,
What is her name, Stephen?
Wendy.
Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome. All right. Aunt Tony, I see you are on. Hello.
Thanks for unmuting me. I'm Tony Bader. My husband and I moved here from Detroit in 1975 with a baby, a boat, and a dog. And we've been here ever since. We've accumulated, we now have 4 children and a dozen grandchildren. I grew up in a Jewish community in Detroit, went all the way through Hebrew school and Hebrew high school. We moved here and we were looking for synagogues. And at the time, Beth-El had parking signs, had signs along the front of the building that said, "Thou shalt not park," in English and Hebrew. And we said, this is it. Within 2 years, my husband and I were USY advisors, and we stymied the high schoolers by having babies. And it scared the heck out of some of these kids when I was very pregnant. And they said, "You're going to have the baby right here in a meeting." And I said, it takes a little longer than that. Normally, we travel all the time. We've been in Indianapolis except for going to Kokomo once since March, which is very unusual for us. We do a lot of traveling, and I've always wanted to do these classes, but because you had to be here physically, I couldn't. And now I am, so I'm doing it. Oh, I was also president of the sisterhood for a while. So,
welcome.
Thank you, Tony, for joining us and for your lifelong service. Wow.
Thank you. You get a gold star, right?
How are you doing? Good. I think we haven't heard from Yana. I see Yana joining us. Are you still in Florida, Yana?
No, I've been in Indianapolis.
Oh, good.
So my name is Yana. I was born in Russia. I've been in the United States for over 15 years. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at Indiana University. And I've been interested in Judaism for as long as I can remember myself. And I've been trying to convert for several years now.
Привет.
Здравствуйте.
We'll get it done.
All right. And last but not least, I see Tori is unmuted. Hit it, Tori.
Howdy. My name's Tori. Indianapolis born and raised. I'm an audio engineer, and I've been interested in conversion for past few years. Maybe I should have been keeping track, but I didn't. And yeah, that's the path I'm on right now.
Welcome. And if I missed anyone, I apologize.
Did anybody get
around a little? Wow. Okay. Wow. We actually got everyone. Awesome. I'm muting myself.
Thank you,
Rabbi.
Thank you, Jackie. Well, this is a bit larger class than I can see in one screen. Actually, we're one over the screen. So I'm trying to keep my eyes on all of you. Thank you so much for those introductions and personal stories. It's wonderful to see so many of you not only here today, but those of you who have taken this class in the past, last year especially, and have continued to be part of so many of our Zoom programs and services at the synagogue. It's good to see your faces, even though we cannot be in the same room together. So welcome to this gathering. How to begin? I wonder if you can just think for a moment. We're not going to go through another sequence of conversations, but just think for a minute. What do you find most intriguing or compelling about Judaism? What do you find most compelling? What do you find most intriguing? What is it that you feel you need to know more about? So just think about that, and we're not going to go through the whole roster and have everybody speak, but if you feel you want to say something about that, What do you find most compelling, most surprising or intriguing, and a question that you might have about Judaism? Let's take a moment. Anybody who wants to say something, just raise your hand, and Jackie will recognize you.
Or feel free to unmute yourself. I think everybody should be able to unmute.
If you want to be even more daring, offer us your definition of Judaism in one sentence. Judaism is.
I love about Judaism that we're in a circle all the time. Our holidays follow the year around. We read the Torah every year. We have life cycle events. And there's always something that, it's a holiday to look forward to, and there's food that goes along with it, depending on where you're from. And Dennis's menu is often different than mine because he came from Panama. But it's the continuity. It doesn't just stop and start. There's a continuity, and you don't have to be a deep believer. You have to want to ask questions. And I think those are very important things about Judaism, that there's no single right or wrong answer. You can ask questions and work it out.
Thank you. Any comments to that or comments of your own?
I just wanted to add that I like the community aspect of it. And I love the traditions and the holidays, and a very long history of Judaism.
Thank you. Anyone else? Can be by way of a question as well, or well, I think our two spokespersons, or people who have spoken, you're all spokespersons for this class. You've hit upon three aspects that I think are crucial to the Jewish experience. Tony said something about belief, but at the same time, the open nature of that belief, the possibility of raising questions. And Yana talked about the experience of community participation and the behavioral experience of Judaism. In your resources, there is a sheet that you can go to. We're not going to look at it now. It's called Judaism in 10 Points. And this is something you might want to take a look at as the course unfolds. It's kind of a little bit of a summary of some of the things that we're going to be talking about. But in the last page, I quote a passage from Rabbi Mordecai Kaplan that you will also find as a separate sheet in your resources. And there, essentially, Kaplan says something that he elaborates upon in his writings. The first point is that one can be a Jew by birth, or one can be a Jew by choice. And central to Jewish identity, whether by birth or by choice, are three elements. Kaplan lists them as identification of oneself as a Jew, as a participant in the historic continuum of the Jewish people, in a sense of identity with its past, present, and future. So that is the sense of belonging. And then Kaplan says, Judaism entails belief in spiritual values of the tradition, the conviction that the spiritual heritage affords inspiration for living and is a worthy contribution to the totality of humanity's spiritual wisdom. Kaplan doesn't say here, this is exactly what you need to believe, but what he is saying is that there is a wealth of spiritual values in Judaism that can give meaning to our life and are a contribution to the total spiritual experience of humanity. Most people speak of Judaism's greatest contribution as the belief in one God, the idea of monotheism. But that is too static a concept. That's a concept that we're going to unpack as we talk about. But there are certain core, not only beliefs in a dogmatic sense, which you will find very little of in Judaism, but rather affirmations of values. That's what I mean by spiritual beliefs. So that's the element of belief. First, we had belonging, then we have belief, and the third is the element of participation in Jewish life, the observance of a cycle of year and ceremonies and holidays and events in the life that give meaning and purpose to one's own experience and that contribute to the perpetuation of the Jewish people in its particular color and flavor. So if we take Kaplan's description here, we can reduce it to three elements. The Jewish experience contains elements of belief, of behavior, and of belonging. I think we can say that about most major religious civilizations. The emphasis in Judaism seems to be particularly in the collective experience. Judaism is not, as many religious traditions think of themselves, as something that is focused just on the individual, but how can the individual be linked to the community? Judaism does not regard religion as something that a person does in his or her solitariness, as Whitehead, a famous American philosopher, would state it. Judaism is how we bring ourselves, our spiritual yearnings, our values, our beliefs to share in the experience of community. And we do that through a certain form of experience of participation, believing, behaving, belonging. So those are three B's that we are going to be looking at as the conversation unfolds. And that overarching all of those, I would add a fourth B, and that is becoming, because Judaism is anything but a static experience. Judaism is first and foremost a historical religion. That is, we look back in history and we discern a continuum. We discern sense of values that are permanent, sense of values that have changed. And of course, we could not understand Judaism unless we looked at it from a historical continuum. And to that end, I'd like to ask Jackie to post the sheet called Chronology of Jewish Religious History. It's going to look something like this. Jackie, can you find us that? And we're going to take a quick look at that. We are going to, in the course of the next three sessions, this one included, kind of look at the continuum of the Jewish historical experience so that we can see where we fit there and how do we fit and what questions we bring to it. And what's most important is that this is, in each moment, a diverse and dynamic experience. Did we find that? There we go. There's a back to that page, but we don't need the back for the moment. I've divided the Jewish historical experience into four periods. This is based on an outline somewhat modified by me, but that appears in a book by Michael Fishbane, Judaism, Revelation, and Religions. If you want to go to the whole book, it's a very good, small, short book on the Jewish experience. But essentially what we're looking at in this page are three of the major periods of Judaism. In the back, we address the modern period, modernity. But let's not look at that for the moment. So what we see here is that the Jewish religious experience, as we look back, takes us to about 2000 before the Common Era. And we find ourselves now in the year 2020. So we're looking at an experience of certainly over 3,500 years. Much of this is proto-Judaism. That is, it wasn't Judaism as we know it. It was what would lay the foundations of what would become Judaism. And the first resource, the first source that we have to look at in an effort to understand the unfolding of the Jewish historical experience is a document that we in the West know as the Bible, right? So we refer to this as the biblical period. And interestingly, this very Shabbat, yesterday, we started the annual cycle of reading the Bible from the very beginning, more particularly of reading the Torah from the very beginning. And I'll give you a little bit of a breakdown of what the Bible is in the Jewish tradition. But here you can see how the biblical period unfolds. Going back 2,000 years, we see that ancestors of what would become the Jews find themselves in Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia means the land between the two rivers, Mesopotamos, between the rivers. And those rivers are the Tigris and the Euphrates. In fact, they're mentioned in this week's Torah portion. And from there, from Mesopotamia, Abraham and his family, as the narrative goes, migrate to the land that I will show you, and that is Canaan. So our earliest beginnings are nomadic, early settlements. The Bible tells us traditions of the patriarchs, development of tribal lineages. Much of this is difficult to call history per se. These are legendary memories of the biblical tradition, which are narrated in the form of ancestral stories. I like to refer to these early chapters of the Bible as our family album, the beginnings of our family album. So from the ancestral narratives, we enter now a little bit more of a historical consciousness. The beginnings of the Jewish people as a self-conscious entity is in the book of Exodus. And this is the first time in the opening chapters of the book of Exodus, the second book in the Torah, that the word people is used as a definition for the Jews. And it is used by Pharaoh. He says, look at these people, they are increasing. They are soon going to take over our land. We've heard that before or since. So the book of Exodus begins with the self-consciousness of the formation of cultural, national, if we can use that term, in pre-modern times. But with the exodus from Egyptian bondage, the people come into a covenantal community. Sinai, the experience of the giving of the Torah, constitutes the self-conscious formation of the people as more than just an aggregate of clans and tribes. And then the biblical narrative continues with the stories of the monarchy, the settlement in the land first, and then the monarchy, the establishment of the reign of David. David was not the first king, it was Saul, but David becomes the symbolic king of the people of Israel. His son Solomon builds the temple. David is associated with the city of Jerusalem, which continues to play an important role. And according to latter tradition, it is from David that the eventual Messiah or Redeemer of the world will come. We'll come back to that. So the biblical narrative tells us now about prophets that arose among the people at different critical times. The Bible hides nothing. It is critical of the Israelites, and it is at the same time a narrative of the experience and what the biblical narrator would call God's ongoing love of the people of Israel despite their shortcomings. But things happen in the experience of the Israelites. The Assyrians arise, they conquer the northern kingdom, they destroy the northern kingdom, and we lose 10 of the tribes that are dispersed and absorbed into Assyrian civilization. The southern kingdom of Judea continues to exist with Jerusalem as its capital and the temple, but that eventually will be destroyed by the Babylonians, and then the Jews will be exiled to Babylonia. That will be succeeded by Persia, that will be succeeded by other kingdoms that arise. The Jews are permitted to return to the land of Israel under the Persians to rebuild the temple. And now we have what is known as the Second Temple period, or the Second Commonwealth. And this is the temple that eventually will be rebuilt in great glory by Herod in the first century before the Common Era. Herod was a puppet of the Romans in the first century of the Common Era, and he ruled upon his people by force, and he was not well liked. And this period will now see the emergence of a new of a people of Israel who will be led by a new category of leaders that eventually will become the rabbis. In the biblical period, in the temple period, the leaders of the religious community were the priests, and they officiated at the temple, and they offered sacrifices, and they in many ways represented the official dome, the official religion of the state. Parallel to them were the prophets, who criticized the priesthood and who called the people to justice and to loyalty to the core teachings of the Torah. With the destruction now of the Second Temple by the Romans, who succeeded the Greeks in governing the land of Israel, we now have a situation where there is no more temple in the first century of the Common Era, and a new institution that had already began to burgeon during the latter Greek and early Roman period, known as the synagogue, begins to take the place of the temple as the central religious agency. The difference between synagogue and temple is that there was one temple in Jerusalem, and it was officiated at by the priests, who were a hierarchy of a family. And now the synagogue becomes the house of the people, and a new cadre of leaders begins to emerge, and eventually they will be known as the rabbis. And this first pre-Christian and first century of the Common Era in the land of Israel, very turbulent times. Because the Romans ruled with such heavy hand, there were a lot of efforts to get rid of the Romans, a lot of revolutionary efforts, and at the same time, a lot of religious developments, a lot of religious sects that looked to the coming of a savior or a redeemer. And it is during this first century of the Common Era that Christianity will begin to develop out of the Jewish experience. Jesus of Nazareth was one of those teachers, charismatic leaders who was seen by his followers as the appointed Messiah, the descendant of King David. But he was not the only one. There were many other movements centered around different people. Following the crushing destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans in the year 70 of the Common Era, Judaism begins to weaken in the land of Israel. Jews are eventually expelled from Jerusalem, and a growing diaspora or dispersion of the Jews begins to take place. The Romans, after the second or last revolt of the Jews in the year 135 of the Common Era, actually prohibit Jews from settling in the city of Jerusalem. They changed the name of the city of Jerusalem to simply Alia Capitolina, which means the capital city, and they changed the name of Judea, which was the name of the land of Judah, from whence we get the name Judaism. They changed the name to Palestina. So the first time that the term Palestina is used as a description of this land is by the Romans, who wanted to erase Jewish connection to that territory because the Jews were very troublesome to the Romans. So this is kind of a quick survey of the biblical period. We're looking at about a span of 2,000 years, or if you want to talk more about historic consciousness, of about 1,200 to 1,500 years of experience. That is all contained in a collection of books that we call the Bible. The important thing to know, as I said at services this morning, is that the Bible, and this is one edition, and I would encourage you, if you wanted to get a new text of the Hebrew Bible written in English in translation, this is a good one. The Jewish Study Bible by several authors, but primarily Adele Berlin, who was a classmate of mine at the university. There's a wonderful resource. The Bible is not a book. It is a books. It is a collection of books spanning a period of at least 1,000 years, recording a history which is even longer than that. And it's important to understand that this book is used in various ways throughout the Jewish life cycle, and it is divided in a very particular way. So if we could take a look at the chart, Jackie, that has the different canons of scripture. Can you find us that and post it for us? The different, no, yes, there you go. Okay, important for us now is the right, far right column, the one that says the Jewish Tanakh. On the other two columns to the left, you will find the way in which Christian traditions arrange the Bible. But I want you to look at how it is arranged in the Jewish tradition. The collection of books that we call the Bible, and the word Bible is a Greek term because the Bible is first translated into a language other than Hebrew into Greek in the 3rd to 4th century before the Common Era. So the terminology that we use for the Bible in the West is very much shaped by the Greek translation. That Greek translation was known as the Septuagint, which means the 70, because it was done by, according to tradition, 70 scholars. So the Septuagint, or Greek Bible, gives us terminology that we use till this day, including the very word Bible, or Biblia in Greek, which means books. The singular would be biblos, book. So the Bible is made up of, in the Jewish tradition, 24 books, and they are arranged in 3 categories. The first category is what we call the Torah. And the Torah is what you will find in the ark in the synagogue, and which we read in a cycle from the beginning till the end, beginning this past Shabbat. We started with the first chapter of Genesis. So if you would go into a synagogue, this is a mini version of it, but the Torah is written on a scroll. And according to tradition, for purposes of synagogue use, it has to be handwritten on a certain type of parchment by a scribe with intentionality for each letter that is being written, with a stylus that is non-metallic, with ink that is non-metallic, because the Torah is not a symbol of war, and metals are what we make weapons for, right? So a feather quill or a wooden stylus with a special ink. And this Torah, of course, is rendered into English and many, many other languages, but the first language was Greek. And in the cycle of a year, we will read from the beginning of Genesis to Deuteronomy. So we just started the book of Genesis. And in the book of Genesis, we find first 11 chapters, kind of a story of the prehistory of the world. And then beginning in chapter 12, the narrative of Abraham that launches the history of what will become the Jewish people. In the Bible, we will find various designations for our people. Abraham was not called a Jew. Abraham was called a Hebrew, means the one who came from the other side, Ever, who crossed from the other side. And that refers to coming from the other side of the Mesopotamian rivers. But the word Hebrew also appears in ancient texts, and it refers to a kind of semi-nomadic group made up of different ethnicities, merchants, sometimes engaging in military enterprises. So Abraham was that kind of an original enterpriser, and he is going from Mesopotamia, the big civilizational country, to a forlorn land, Canaan, small kingdoms, where divine providence tells them to go. The next name that we find for Jews, before we are called Jews in the Bible, is children of Israel. Who is Israel? Well, Israel is Jacob, Abraham's grandson, who struggles with an angel and whose name is changed from Jacob, that has some pejorative connotation, the one who holds on to the heel of his brother, the one who tries to cheat his brother. His name is now changed to Israel, which means one who struggles with God or one who struggles for God, after an episode of Jacob striving with an angel during a dream. And then as Jacob's name is changed to Israel, the God wrestler, we become known as the children of Israel, the descendants of Israel. Jacob had 12 sons and a daughter, as I indicated before. The sons become the heads of the 12 tribes of Israel, and that's our ancestral memory. The tribe that emerges as the surviving tribe is the tribe of Judah, because Judah was the name of the kingdom to the south. Israel was the name of the kingdom to the north. We saw in the chronology that the Assyrians destroyed Israel in the 8th century. Judah survives with capital in Jerusalem until it is destroyed by the Babylonians, and then later. So the descendants of Jacob, Israel, are Bnei Israel, the Israelites. So that's who we are, the descendants of Israel, the people of Israel. The name Israel was chosen by the modern Jewish state in the 20th century when it came into being. By the way, there was some conversation as to whether it should be called Judah or Israel. They opted for Israel because it was more inclusive. So today we distinguish between Israelis as citizens of the state of Israel and Israelites, which are the total community of Israelites. The name Jew is a derivative of the name Judah. In the kingdom of Judah, the Romans would call the people who live there the Judaioi, the Judahites, the Judaioi. And the word Jew and Judaism is a derivative of that term. So Hebrew, Israel, Jew are all appropriate historical designations for our people. I saw a question in the chat about Dinah and what happens to her. What does the daughter become? She does not become the head of a tribe. What she has become in modern times is a very important symbol of Jewish feminism. So I encourage you to go and read Anita Diamond's book. And there is a great deal of midrash or rabbinic storytelling about Dinah and the important role that she plays behind the scenes. Let us remember the times that we are dealing with. So take a look at that, Heather, and we'll follow from there. So I made this digression into the terms because they all are of Torah origin. So the first part of the Bible is the Torah. The word Torah means teaching, not law. Sometimes in Christianity, we refer to it as the law of Moses. It is the teaching of Moses. Christianity likes to distinguish between Judaism, which is law, and Christianity, which is grace. That is an unfortunate false distinction. The second part of the Hebrew Bible is the prophets, in Hebrew, Nevi'im, and it consists of these books listed there. Some are historical. The book of Joshua tells of the conquest of the land, the book of Judges, the period before the establishment of the kingship. The books of Samuel are about the beginnings of the kingship, and the books of Kings tell of the narratives of the kings of Israel and the kings of Judea. And then we come into the great classical or literary prophets. These are books that have shaped the social consciousness, the justice language of the West. They become very important not only in Judaism, but certainly in Christianity. If you enter particularly the Black church experience, goes back to the books of the prophets, because if you want to learn about what society should stand for and what social justice means, you need to go and read Isaiah and Jeremiah and Amos. These are books that have shaped the Western consciousness. The collection of books there that you see as the 12, these are short books that are collected as one book in the Jewish tradition. So that second part of the Bible is the Nevi'im. We read the Torah in a yearly cycle in the synagogue. It's divided into 54 portions corresponding to the weeks of the year. Sometimes they're combined, sometimes they're supplemented by other readings when holidays come. And then after reading a passage of Torah, we go and read what is known in the synagogue as a haftarah, or a completion of the reading. The haftarah, the second reading, always comes from one of the books of the prophets. So Torah first, then prophets, and then the third part of the Hebrew Bible is Ketuvim, which means simply the writings. And the Ketuvim is an assortment of books on teachings, short novellas, religious poetry, like the book of Psalms. Perhaps the most important part of the Ketuvim, the writings, is the book of Psalms, which consists of 150 poems that have become very, very important in Western culture. If anybody is asked to quote a psalm, they would probably quote the 23rd Psalm, very famous, used often for funerals, even though it's not a funerary psalm. And many of you know it from its opening words, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Eternal is my shepherd. But there are books about teachings, and then there is a collection of books there that are read for different Jewish holidays. The book of Ruth is read for Shavuot. Song of Songs is read during Passover, the time of spring. Ecclesiastes, a book of kind of a cynical, philosophic inquiry, very much influenced by Greek and Roman Stoicism, is read for Sukkot, or Tabernacles. Lamentations on the 9th of the 9th of the month of Av, which marks the destruction of the temple, and the book of Esther, perhaps the best known of the short little books in the Bible. It is read during the festival of Purim, and it is referred to as the Megillah, which means the short scroll. The fact is that all of those books that I just listed for you are known as Megillah or Megillot in the plural, and they're used for different holidays. So that is the structure of the Hebrew Bible. In Hebrew, we refer to this collection as Tanakh. Look at the upper entry there, Jewish Tanakh. And the word Tanakh is an acronym for the three parts of the Bible: Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. So the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. That is a synopsis of the Hebrew Bible. I encourage you to start reading it, especially now that we have started in the synagogue the cycle of readings with the book of Genesis. See if you can stay with the cycle and then supplement it. Read a few chapters from here and from there. Familiarize yourself with the book of Psalms, some of the greatest religious poetry of all times. My favorite book is the book of Ecclesiastes, and I have taught courses on Ecclesiastes because in many ways Ecclesiastes poses questions of the Bible that upend many of the classical assumptions of religious tradition, including assumptions of the Bible. So fascinating is that the Bible is an open text that even questions its own basic assumptions. There is commentary on the Bible inside the Bible. It's kind of an ongoing conversation. Tony asks a good question. What are the different arrangements of the Bible? Is that what you asked, Tony? Yeah. Well, the arrangements in the Protestant and Catholic traditions differ among themselves a little bit, as you can see. They follow more the Greek arrangement of the scriptures. I said in the 3rd, 4th century before the Common Era, the Hebrew Bible was translated into Greek. At that time, there were a lot of other books floating in the community that were considered holy in some ways, but didn't make it into the Hebrew canon. Canon is a term that refers to the authorized version of something, the authorized structure of something. So as you will see in the second column, Protestant, at the bottom there's a section known as the Apocrypha. Apocrypha is the name that we give to some additional writings. The word means hidden or outside books that did not make it into the Hebrew Bible because they were not considered to be holy enough, or they were written at a time after which the rabbis believed that the Bible should be closed. So among those books are the books of Maccabees, as you can see, 8 and 9, Maccabees 1, Maccabees 2. We tell the story of Hanukkah based on the books of Maccabees, but the books of Maccabees are not part of the Hebrew Bible. The story of Purim is based on the book of Esther, and that makes it into the Bible. Maccabees, because it occurred into the 2nd century before the Common Era, was deemed to be too late for inclusion in the Bible. The rabbis believed that anything written before Alexander the Great, the 3rd century before the Common Era, was not under divine providence and should not enter into the scriptures. But the story of Maccabees becomes important, but the rabbis modify it, soften it, demilitarize it as they tell it in the Talmud. Okay, there are a lot of references to Hanukkah in the Talmud, but not in the Hebrew Bible. So the Apocrypha is separated as a separate category in the Protestant editions of the Bible, but it is built in to the flow of books in the Roman Catholic edition of the Bible. So if you look at 17 in the Roman Catholic, 17 picks up Tobit and Judith and some of the books that you have in the Apocrypha as separate books. So even Christians differ among themselves in the order of the books and the relative importance of them in the liturgical cycle. Now, the Christian Bibles end with the book of Malachi. You can see Malachi 39 in the Protestant, 46 in the Christian. Malachi is the last of the prophets in the Hebrew Bible. You can see Malachi at the end of the 12 prophets, right before the Ketuvim. The book of Malachi is towards the end of the period of the return of the Israelites to the land of Egypt during the Persian time. And the book of Malachi ends with the hope of the coming of the Messiah, which is a great point for Christianity to end its Bible, because they see the verses in Malachi as pointing to the coming of Jesus centuries later. But in the Jewish tradition, the Bible ends with the books of Chronicles. And the book of Chronicles is just a historic narrative of the Jewish people up to the period of the Babylonian destruction. And the book of Chronicles ends with the promise of the return to the land. So the Jewish Bible points to the promise of the return to the land. The Christian Bible ends with the promise of the coming of Jesus as the Messiah. Now, Malachi doesn't refer to Jesus, but the Christian tradition reads this in such a way that it points to the coming of Jesus. I hope that clarifies. Okay, any questions about this before we get rid of this page? I've been talking for too long. Questions? Let's open the screen for everybody. Anybody has a question, just raise your hands or unmute yourself.
It's about languages. I was curious to know in which language most of the books have been written.
Yes.
Due to the fact that we have different period of time in originally. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yes, the Hebrew Bible is written in Hebrew, except for one book, the book of Daniel, which is written in Aramaic. And there are a few Aramaic passages or references in a couple of other books in the Bible. But essentially, the Hebrew Bible is in Hebrew. And this was the language that the Israelites spoke. It was a version of some Canaanite language, very closely associated with Proto-Semitic, early Semitic languages. There's a great deal of similarity between Phoenician and Canaanite languages and Hebrew. In fact, to better understand the Hebrew Bible, there are certain passages that are difficult to understand. You can find parallels or insights to them in the writings of other ancient Near Eastern people of that area. City of Ugarit, the city of Byblos, as it is called in Greek. So it is the language, a distinct language of the Israelites, which shared a great deal with other languages of the area. Then, after the biblical period, Aramaic, which was a kind of a universal language, it was the English of the ancient Near East, or what was French for some time, right? The universal language. So Aramaic becomes kind of the universal language. And interestingly, much of the Talmud, especially the second layer of the Talmud, is written in Aramaic and not in Hebrew. And there are many different Aramaic dialects. The Aramaic of the book of Daniel in the Bible is different from the Aramaic in the Talmud. So those are the languages of the Hebrew scriptures. Now, as I said, the Bible is translated from Hebrew into Greek in the 3rd, 4th century before the Common Era, and is through the Greek that the Bible influences Western civilization. The Greek will eventually be translated into Latin by Jerome, and then into European history.
Would you say that we lost a lot of the original roots and by the process of going from one language to another and being carried on with different communities?
Yeah, translation is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it brings the text to people who speak other languages. On the other hand, every translation is a bit of an interpretation, and it can mislead. There's an expression in Italian, traduttore traditore. One who translates betrays. because you cannot render one language into another and retain the precise meaning. Every translation is a bit of an interpretation. Now, the rabbis love to interpret the biblical text as well, and they play around with the words and give them meanings that are not what is called the pshat, the flat meaning or the literal meaning of the text. We'll look a little bit into that next week when we study the rabbinic tradition.
Okay,
So, yes,
thank you very much. Thank
you're
you.
welcome. Any other questions?
Mine's kind of like a two-parter, but like, how do you suggest we start reading the Tanakh? Because I always get like, should I read the Torah first and then move on, or read it in like as one would like an actual book of like start with chapter 1 and continue on?
I would do both. I would take a section and kind of move through it, but then, just open up another section and read. Take a look at what do you find in the book of Psalms. Take a look at the wisdom of the book of Proverbs. Read a little bit of Ecclesiastes. Kind of get a feel for the diversity and the richness that is there. And then you're going to have a lot of questions. You're going to find some of this stuff pretty disconnected from your experience, right? Especially when you get into the book of Leviticus and the book of Numbers and all these sacrifices and cooking recipes for the priests. And kind of a lot of the descriptions of the sacrifices are like a good barbecue descriptions. But you have to put yourself into the mindset of another time. The worst problem about reading the Bible is to try to interpret it literally for our times. You have to really try to get into the mindset and understand that Judaism today is not lived on the basis of what the Bible teaches. We are not a biblicist religion. We are a religion that is grounded in the Bible, but that has evolved and in the process of interpretation and application. So the Bible is like the foundation of the edifice, right? But then there is a period when Judaism becomes what we today identify as Judaism more. And that is the next period that we'll study next week, Rabbinic Judaism. So the Bible is foundational, but the Rabbinic period is formative, right? And then the Middle Ages is kind of a crystallization, and modernity, beginning with the democratic revolutions, the French and the American, and what we call modernity, that is transformation. So foundation, formation, crystallization, transformation. That's how I look at the four major periods in Jewish history. It is not static, it is evolving. So when you read the Bible, just bear in mind that you're reading something very important and foundational for the Jewish tradition, but you cannot live a Jewish life today just by appealing to the Hebrew Bible. But it's a rich, nuanced, a very, very challenging book. So I would say kind of work your way through the Torah from beginning to end. You can, skim a few things as you get in Leviticus and Numbers, and then you will see how the whole tone of the biblical narrative changes. And some of the stuff that you'll read, you will not be too happy with, but that's okay. That's part of the narrative, right? We are part of a continuum. Yes. Other questions?
Rabbi, as we've been, switching over to the new cycle of the Parshat, I've been trying to keep up with, doing the Torah readings on my own, and I've been, obviously with Rabbi Jenny's Torah talks on Saturday mornings, those have helped, but I've gotten like this like this desire to read through it and do Torah study with others. And I was wondering if you had any recommendations on how to go about that, or especially if there's like any programs at Beth-El for that sort of partner study, because it's hard to do it alone.
Yes. Judaism is traditionally studied in Chevruta. Chevruta means with a chaver or a havera, a friend, because the process of studying in Judaism is not just internalizing, but discussing. You know, what does this say to you? You benefit from the insights of others, so a conversation. One thing you can do is just find a conversation partner. We are limited now in the kinds of things that we can do, but certainly there's the opportunity of engaging with somebody who has a similar interest to you. And when you read the Bible, read it with a good commentary. So I would encourage you to use this commentary, the Jewish Study Bible, but there are many others. The Eitz Chaim that we use at the synagogue just contains the Torah and the weekly Haftorahs. It's not a full Bible, the Eitz Chaim. It's the Torah plus the weekly Haftorahs. This is a full text. And you might want to mention to Rabbi Jenny on a Saturday morning if she would recommend a way of kind of, there are a lot of people who are her regulars. Perhaps you guys want to divide into some chat rooms or Chevruta conversation. But there is a lot online as well. Be careful too about the fact that there is a lot online, because there's a lot of good stuff, but then there's a lot of schlocky stuff. Here, I wanted to show you guys something. Can you see this? Who can tell me what this is? Is it in the right direction when you read it? What does it say?
It looks like a microfiche.
This is a Torah microfiche. This is the entire Torah in microfiche. If I put this under a children's microscope, I can read it. So here it is. See, you can carry the Torah with you. I gave one of these to our Beth-El congregant and astronaut, David Wolf, when he went on his first space trip and spacewalk. And I gave it to him with a quote from the book of Deuteronomy. The book of Deuteronomy says, "The Torah is not in the heavens, that you should go up to the heavens to look for it." And I said, well, since the Torah is not in the heavens, you might as well bring it up there. So this is the Torah in microfiche. Moses, this is how Moses brought it down from Mount Sinai. Yeah. Okay, it is 11:30 nearly, and I don't want to keep you for too long because you've been studying Hebrew and paying very good attention. Take a look at the stuff that is in the resources. We'll put some more resources for next week. We tried to do too quick the kinds of things that should take a whole course to look at. One of the resources is this, a brief synopsis of the Hebrew Bible. And here in 2 back-to-back pages, you will find a summary of the essentials of each book in the Bible, not just the Torah. So it's a nice little resource. It takes the 3 parts of the Bible and breaks it down and gives you a little synopsis of each of the books. And this is another resource here, From Back to the Sources. You'll find that there. This is from a very helpful book that if you want to dig a little bit deeper, I encourage you to get. It's called Back to the Sources, Reading the Classic Jewish Texts. And it has a chapter on each of the major texts of the Jewish tradition: the Bible, the Talmud, medieval philosophers, the prayer book. One of the things that you will learn in reading this, and we didn't have time to look into that, is whereas the traditional understanding is that the Torah was given to Moses at Sinai by God. Here it is, one complete book. That scholarship shows us otherwise. The Torah, as a text that we have it today, is the product of centuries of evolution. And it is made of different layers or different documents that have been woven together in order to arrive at the text that we have today. Scholars have different names for those different units or documents. The documentary hypothesis of the Bible that developed in Europe and Germany in the 18th century speaks about the J document, the P document, the E document, the D document, and they're woven together. If you look at the beginnings of the book of Genesis, you'll begin to see with a clear eye some of those differences in the documents, like the story of creation that we read this Shabbat. Begins with the 7 days of creation. And if you look at that carefully, you will see that only the name Elohim, which is the generic name for God, is used. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. And for the first chapter and 3.5 verses of the next chapter, it is Elohim who creates. Elohim in the Bible is the kind of generic name for God, the cosmic God, so to speak. Enter into chapter 2, and we go into the story of the creation of the Garden of Eden and the creation of Adam, and from Adam, Eve. And there, the name for God is Yahweh Elohim, or Yud He Vav He. We pronounce it Adonai in liturgy today, and it is the name of the God of Israel in most of the biblical narrative. So Adonai Elohim is the creator in the most of the second chapter of Genesis, and we have a totally different story. If you look with a discerning eye, in the first chapter, God creates humanity, male and female. God created them on the 6th day of creation, male and female. Enter story number 2, chapter 2 in the Torah, beginning at verse 3.5 or 4.5, after the description of the Sabbath. It says, and Adonai Elohim had a garden, and there these things happened, and God created Adam from the earth, and Adam was alone. So God says, need some company. So God gives him pets, animals, to keep him company. And Adam was still alone. So God says, perhaps we should make a proper companion. And out of Adam's rib, if that's how we translate the word Selah, God creates Eve, Chava, the mother, and she becomes the mother of all flesh. So in the second chapter, in the second story of creation, first Adam, then Eve. In the first story of creation, humanity, male and female at the same time. These are two different documents from different periods, from different literary sources that have been juxtaposed in the opening sections of the Bible. And if you just read them, you think you're reading a continuous story. But what you're reading is two different stories of creation. The same thing with the story of Noah and the flood. There are interminglings. And if you are trained in it, you can discern it. Most readers just say, oh, what a lovely story. But no, this is confusing. Why does it say that in the story of Noah? In some place it says a pair of every animal. In another part it says, no, 7 pairs of clean animals and 1 pair of unclean, and so forth. So differences. In one place it says the waters lasted for 40 days and 40 nights. And in another place it says 150 days. You have different stories that have been woven together into one text. So the Bible itself is a composite text. And you need to understand it from a literary, historical, developmental point of view. We'll talk more about that next week. Last question. Burning questions? Thank you for your patience. Great to see all your faces, and look forward to being in touch next week.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel. That's where all of these recordings will be housed. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook for more updates.
You can also go to the YouTube for past services. During the services, there are often, sermons or talks that might be interesting to you. I know that Rabbi Jenny talked about Genesis yesterday. I gave a little talk about that at services as well. But lots of stuff out there, High Holy Day sermons, and other opportunities that we will bring you throughout the year. Thanks for joining us. Good to see many of you back and good to see new faces. Au revoir. Adios.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Svidanya.
Do svidania. Thank you.
Rabbi?